Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's webinar in partnership with Cendyn, where we are going to be talking about how to drive loyalty now and in the future. My name's Eloise Hansen. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News. Now, we are an online multimedia B2B platform for boutique, lifestyle and luxury hotels. Now, to introduce Cendyn today, we have a short video to play for you. So please, IHN, can you take it away?
Data management for hoteliers can be messy, complicated, and seem unattainable. But understanding your data and being able to leverage it can deliver better results across your hotel. It allows you to learn more about your guests and deliver more personalised, relevant experiences and service throughout their stay. Hotels are known to have multiple data sources. They can include a property management system, point of sale, guest satisfaction, loyalty, and much more. By bringing this all together, CRM can provide the means for hoteliers to centralise their data and create a single source of truth for every guest. CRM can be used to deliver more personalised, relevant experiences and services to guests, no matter the channel they come through. What does this mean for your guests? Hoteliers can go from a complicated system of siloed data to a clean, single view of usable data that can be actioned on at any time, allowing you, the hotelier, to concentrate on providing the best possible experience for every guest.
And if you would like further information about Cendyn, their website has been popped into the chat for you to follow up on. Now, before we crack on and meet our speakers today, I've just got some housekeeping to run through. So effectively, we are going to spend 45 minutes in discussion today, followed by a Q&A at the end. So this is my call out to the audience. If you have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function, and I will get round to these as and when. And as a gentle reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and every registrant will receive a copy of that recording via email. So let's meet today's speakers. And I am going to ask each of them to individually introduce themselves. I'm just going to move from left to right as per the PowerPoint slide. So Victoria, can I come to you first, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Curley, and I head up revenue and distribution for Rooms Apart Hotels. We're now 16 years old. We operate 792 apartments in the UK across 10 locations, with our 11th due to open later this year in Edinburgh. My background in hospitality spans about 15 years now, mainly rooms division roles across Thistle Hotels, Accor, IHG, before I joined Rooms in 2018. I'm excited to be here to discuss all things loyalty today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Victoria. And I'm coming to you next, Niels, please.
Hi, my name is Niels Beckenkamp. I am with Cendyn, but have been throughout the hotel industry, working in hotels as well as for hotels for the last 25 or so years. Have been in revenue management, marketing, all kinds of, but I actually started in operations, so I've pretty much done everything in hotels.
Thank you, Niels. And coming to you next, Ellis, please.
Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Ellis Connolly here from sunny San Diego. I'm Chief Revenue Officer with Lassie. We are the instant gratification loyalty platform. We power loyalty and direct booking tools for about 1,500 hotels. And very excited to be here today to talk about how loyalty is evolving, shifting, and changing.
Thank you, Ellis. And last but not least, Casper, over to you.
Yes, hello, good afternoon and good morning. I'm Casper. I'm in Cendyn 4 years now. I'm supporting everything we do around digital and customer experience, and which includes also loyalty. I have a background at KLM, the airline, and then bol.com, which is the largest online retailer. And then within Cendyn, I work on the website, the digital platforms, or loyalty products, the subscription that we just put live. customer data. So I'm really keen to learn from this webinar and maybe share a few stories myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper, and thank you all. So before I get round to kicking off the discussion, I want to basically highlight some context to our conversation today. And on your slides here, you are going to see some examples of how loyalty programs have recently been revamped. And I think this is a clear indication that the definition of loyalty has changed alongside shifting consumer values. And I think it also speaks to the importance of brand image and engagement as the hotel industry recovers. On the next slide, we have some unusual and innovative examples of how hotels are looking to attract and reward their guests. So in the top left-hand corner, we have an example of Hotel Lancaster, which has recently launched a sustainable NFT range. And the rise of Web3 is prompting some hotel groups to actually explore NFTs as a new way to engage with their customers. Marriott, which is the second story on this slide, has recently launched a food app in the UAE for loyalty members to receive discounts on local dining experiences. And it's an app, and I believe the user simply shakes their phone, and through some kind of algorithm or through some kind of tech, it will generate where you can visit in your local vicinity to receive those discounts. And in the bottom right-hand corner here, Accor has just recently introduced a credit card with ADCB Bank for users to earn perks and discounts at Accor properties also in the UAE. So I hope this just gives some background to what we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about loyalty. And I actually want to kick off with a question to the audience. I would like those tuning in today to please type in the chat what you think are the shortcomings of hotel loyalty schemes today. And I will read these comments out as and when they come through. Whilst that is happening, Niels, I'm coming to you first, please. Where do you think are the opportunities to revamp and reposition loyalty programs?
No, the opportunity is any time really, and I think one of the things I've heard many times is loyalty is dead and loyalty doesn't work, and that's one thing that always frustrates me, because that means that loyalty hasn't been implemented correctly. And loyalty is very personal to everyone, and I take it back to maybe Casper with his experience at KLM. I have multiple airline programs, and we all travel a lot, right? So everybody is signed up to multiple airline programs, and what I try to get from those airline programs, even traveling for business, is something for myself. So when you have a hotel chain with 10 hotels, and you have a loyalty program that awards people for free nights after they've stayed 20 nights, that's something that's not very appealing. And so you need to think to yourself, what is it that my guests want? So yes, maybe it is free nights, but how does that translate? But it could also be something else, right? It could be an Amazon voucher, or it could be something, an instant reward. And that's something that you need to find for your target audience. And that's something that so for me, before starting loyalty and before saying, okay, I want to start a loyalty program, think for yourself, what is it that I want to achieve? And secondly, what is it that my guest wants?
Mm-hmm. As you were talking then, Niels, I could see Ellis nodding his head in agreement to you. And to build on what you've just said, Niels, we've already had some comments come through from our audience members. I asked what are the shortcomings of hotel loyalty schemes. Someone's commented, some loyalty programs can be quite inflexible, and I think there is more opportunity to fine-tune these programs to the guests themselves. Corporate guests are different to leisure guests, which are different to solo travelers and families. Offering more flexibility and more fine-tuned offerings to the guest profiles would help personalize the experience. And other comments around the shortcomings, we have a hotel engagement and giving away profit. So with this in mind, Niels, what advice would you give to build a successful loyalty program?
Like I said, start with your guest. Understand what is it that your guest wants, and understand, okay, what is it that actually engages this guest. There are two real key things to look at. That's first of all, make the rewards not too hard to achieve, and be playful with the rewards, not just free rooms, but free upgrades. It could be a bottle of wine, or it could be, like I said, in Amazon or in the Netherlands, a ball voucher. That's also something that is, of course, possible, Casper. But at the same time, when you're looking at setting it up, think of playful ways. Gamification is something that we're looking into at the moment. How can we make that experience for that guest with the loyalty platform more engaging and more playful? Because let's face it, there are a lot of programs out there, as we saw in the comments now as well, that are not giving the guests what they want. So it is really truly looking at what is it that your guest wants, but at the same time, try and make it playful, but also never forget what is it that you want to achieve with that loyalty portal. As just having it for the sake of having a loyalty platform is also not right. So you need to understand, okay, what is it, what data do I want to collect, what do I want to achieve, do I want to build my database and grow my guest count, let's say. So what you need to set for yourself is targets. Understand what is it that I want to achieve, what is it that my guests want to achieve, and bring that together.
Thank you, Niels. I'd like to now come to, I suppose, the brands and the operators that are on this panel who have just recently launched new loyalty programs. So Victoria, let's kick off with you. Rooms has just launched Perks, or Perks, I should be saying. What's been some of your key learnings during that process?
Sure. I think it's important to say that we're still learning. Perks was launched at the end of 2020. So we have really launched into this new space of loyalty that isn't what it once was. It's gone from a very different state, and now customers are so much more focused on, when we launched it, was what are your cleaning protocols and what's my cancellation policy? And those were the kind of key things that people wanted to hear from us in our messaging. And loyalty almost got a little bit lost in that. But I think our biggest key takeaway is really having gone through the process now. Ultimately, you start a loyalty scheme looking at what do we really want to gain from it? And for us, it was obviously building that brand awareness and increasing direct conversion. But the biggest part of that was technology. Our technology was really the biggest key, because it will make or break your loyalty scheme. I think technology builds such trust in loyalty, because if you start something and you put out there what it's going to be and the member benefits that are going to be available, and your guests can't access those, or there are glitches in the way it works, especially when you are an independent brand and you're using multiple providers. So for us, that's Cendyn as our loyalty platform and CRM, and Avio as our booking engine. If you can't get that process right, you end up in this really tough spot where you can't fulfill what you want from your loyalty scheme, and it doesn't actually do what you want it to do as a brand either. So it doesn't help you increase direct conversion, because actually the sign up process through your booking engine isn't right. And we've been sensationally lucky with our partners that we got that mix right, and we were able to make the process as seamless as it could be. So instead of creating a barrier to the loyalty side of things, we were actually able to enhance our offering on our booking engine through adding loyalty into the mix as well, which I think has definitely been our biggest takeaway, was how important that those partners are in not just building the scheme, but then being able to dive into the personalization of it, which is such a key factor to people now, really being able to tell you what they want directly, and looking at that element of how different your consumers are from a leisure side and a corporate side.
Thank you, Victoria. Casper, almost similar question to yourself. citizenM has just launched My citizenM Plus. So what's been your key learnings from launching that loyalty program?
Yeah, well, I think it's nice. I first of all really recognize the ingredients that Niels mentioned on offer what your guests are looking for, and also look into gamification. For us, My citizenM Plus is part of what in the end will be a suite of ways to engage with our customers and guests. And this really focuses on what do our guests and customers need most. We actually did a lot of research together with them on what is it that they're looking for, and we found out that price security and guaranteed availability were one of the main items they were looking for. And especially the price security was a little bit of a surprise, because citizenM is focusing a lot on business travelers, and there was some kind of assumption that business travelers were not interested in price. That turned out to be completely wrong assumption. And that's why we worked on the setup, and the setup is that you get 10% discount on the best available rate that is already only available at mycitizenm.com. Then on top of that, you get guaranteed availability, you get free late checkout, free room with a view, and we offer our splendid super user service. These were all ingredients that we tested with customer base, both in the development stage and afterwards, now that we are live. What they really like, and that's the feedback that we get, is that it's instant. So not having to wait 20 stays before you get something. It's really like, okay, you pay for it, but you immediately get it. And we offer it at 10 euros a month, with almost, especially with the current hotel prices, it already makes it up for one stay. So they like the instantly, and they like the transparency that you can just at one glance see what you get. So that's the feedback that we get. What we discovered in bringing it to market, I really agree with Victoria, because you really need to find out what is the moment that a customer is open for it, and then you will need to be able to provide it. So in the end, integrating it into the booking flow and make it sure that you are transparent on what is it turned out to be the best marketing campaign, if you want to call it a campaign, because that is when you capture the audience when they are most interested. And since it's really like a very, you could almost say transactional or flat thing, say, okay, if you now subscribe, this is what you get immediately. That seemed to work. We have a number of goals that we set on revenue and on numbers of subscriptions sold. Currently, we are around 3,000 sold. So we are very positive about it. It sort of fits what we expected and hoped for. And still, we know that there's a lot of things that we can improve. We're very actively seeking feedback from the market. We organize webinars with new members. So that's how we try to learn and grow, knowing that we are only at the start.
Mm-hmm. Following up here with you, Casper, what do you think is the new loyalty currency and why? And I know when I promoted this webinar on my LinkedIn page, I actually asked the question, are the days of a traditional points-based scheme outdated or outnumbered? So we've already seen in the comments today that flexibility is going to be key in the future. So Casper, what do you think is the new loyalty currency?
Nice term, loyalty currency. First of all, well, I'm not from hospitality, so as I explained, and I already discovered that loyalty in airline travel, loyalty in e-commerce, and loyalty in hospitality is being perceived in a very different way. And within hospitality, I see that loyalty is now really like always linked to a program, and very often to a reward for whatever you are loyal to. And I wonder if that's something that we can maintain. First of all, it's quite costly, and the liability that you need to cover for on your balance is, it has a big impact, especially if you're not so big yet. We are still growing. But secondly, yeah, in our research, and we did quite some target audience research, yeah, we discovered like there is like the traditionalist group that are really thinking, okay, I have to stay in this and that hotel, and I'm fine with it because at the end of the year I can bring my spouse to a nice resort. But there is also like a group, and that we call experientialists, and they are much more about instant and what is it, and they want to make the best out of their stay and to find ways to be relevant, looking into dynamics like leisure, or have partnerships with brands that have affinity with your brand. Yeah, that's something that they are looking for, and they're very sensitive to community. But they also indicate that they don't want to be forced to go into a community. So I think it's a very fragile new world where softer elements come to play. And we are just at the discovery and starting to see exactly how it rolls out. And I think, I think that's the best prediction that I can give on where it will go to.
Thank you, Casper. I'd like to bring Ellis into the conversation here. We've heard a couple people already thus far talk about that instant gratification. And in fact, Ellis, you even mentioned it in your introduction earlier. So what do you think travelers now value?
Well, first I want to say, loyalty isn't dead, right? Which is what we've been hearing systematically throughout a lot of pubs in the industry. It's not dead. It's just really boring, right? It's just really boring. And, kudos to Cendyn for leading the charge and being a front runner and shifting the model on a subscription basis. I love that. Cendyn is doing some amazing things. Obviously, Niels, we partner across a few organizations over here in the US. And Victoria, I got to say, the Perks program, you are speaking my language if you're familiar with Lassie. So great to hear all the innovations that are happening here within the space. I think, look, what do travelers value now? Options, right? It's options. Is building points loyalty, or is it habitual, right? Think about that for a second. And we'll talk more about transactional versus emotional loyalty here in a bit. But, do I fly on my airline carrier because I'm loyal to them, because they're doing amazing things around personalization that make me want to get out of my chair and book them? No, I book them because I know I'm going to sit in the front of the plane. That's why I book them. I don't book them because it's an amazing experience to get herded in, onto an air carrier. What it gets value, right? Guests aren't motivated by what we think they need, right? Guests aren't motivated by, and Niels mentioned this before, guests don't care about if I stay 10 nights and I get my 11th night free, right? Guests don't care about the complimentary Wi-Fi if you sign up for my loyalty program. I mean, not giving someone Wi-Fi is like keeping them from water at this point, right? Like, we have to fundamentally think and shift about what loyalty is and means and what benefits we need to prepare with that. They're actually motivated by what they want. The guests are motivated by what they want. That's why points and cashback programs don't work as well as we think they do. Now, do they work well for the big brands where you've got millions and gazillions of members? Of course. But those programs were built to sell flags, right? Those big membership programs aren't built for customers. They're built for flags, to sell more flags. Our thought here at Lassie is creating a choice reward ecosystem that allows travelers to pick and choose how they want to be rewarded. And then Lassie layering in these AI capabilities that surface rewards that are bucketed to that traveler, right? Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example very quickly. We all build rate codes around concerts, right? I'm the oldest person in my company, right? We listen to Justin Bieber all the time. I've become a fan recently. Okay. So Justin Bieber's in town. There's a rate code that's been booked for the Bieber conference, 2-night stay. It's with a local convention hall that's in the city. Well, 6 months goes by after that concert, and you're trying to sort through within your loyalty member base, how do I create loyalty? You know, what are the things that I should be thinking about? And Justin Bieber releases a new single. So based on looking into your Cendyn database or within the Lassie portal, you have the ability to say, who booked this rate code? Who booked it on mobile? Who booked it on an iPhone? And then you can deliver them their latest single from Justin Bieber through an iTunes reward, right? No ask for a future booking, nothing. Thank you for staying with us to see Justin Bieber. Check out his newest single from XYZ Hotel. And don't ask for anything else. That right there is emotional loyalty. They don't know you're going to send that to them. It's not based on a point infrastructure that says, okay, I did this. Now I know they're going to send me this. It's surprise and delight. It's random. It's emotional, right? So those are the types of things that I think about from a loyalty perspective that guests will value.
Are you observing any changes in buying behaviors? I know you've just used the sort of Justin Bieber concert ticket as an example, but we've talked thus far about I suppose a shift between materialistic value versus experiential value. And I'd be intrigued to hear, Ellis, whether you are seeing a change in what consumers are actually buying.
Yeah, and I think you have to throw into that ring as well sustainability value, right? What are the values of the organization that you're booking with? You know, look, I think that my mother and father purchase much differently than I do, right? And my children purchase or will begin to purchase much more differently than I will as well. And here's the conundrum that we're facing, right? Is that across that entire spectrum of my 12-year-old son, who's not buying hotel rooms, but for the concept of this conversation, right? He's purchasing things on his Nintendo Switch, through his iPad to get Roblox things, right? So that's already starting down there. And then my father still wants to pick up the phone and call the hotel to make a booking. And I kind of sit in the middle somewhere, right? So from a purchasing, have to purchase, education throughout that whole kind of span, hoteliers, this is the really hard part about being a hotel, is you've got to understand how to communicate across that entire spectrum, right? And I think some properties and some groups do it really well kind of in the middle. Some kind of abandon the kind of call and voice channel. Some reliant very heavily on web only. And it is, you know, it's dependent upon the business. It's dependent upon the demand that your hotel sees, and you can shift and move. And to someone's comment in the audience, be flexible. But I think, you know, in the true e-commerce sense of how people buy now, you know, I can sit here and over the course of this webinar, I could probably spend $16 million just by one-click purchasing across, you know, 15 different websites that I've seen. As we start to get, as we start to evolve kind of purchasing and loyalty and what that looks like, you know, I think there's a lot of different things that we're going to have to do as an industry to really tie all that together, right? I think the one-click purchase, the mobile wallets have to play a part. You know, how do you start to combine mobile wallet execution with loyalty? You know, are you deriving benefits from mobile wallet at the hotel? Can you incentivize people to do that faster? So I think there's going to be a lot of things, and there's a lot of great fintech companies that are out there now that are doing some pretty slick stuff that we're actually partnering with. I can't share that yet, but it's going to be quite exciting over the next couple of months.
Thank you, Ellis. So come back to Niels here to talk. We've touched on how there are different types of traveller. It's again been alluded to in the chat that there's family, there's solo, there's corporate, there's leisure, and loyalty programs to some degree have always been geared towards the corporate traveller. They are the most lucrative loyalty audience member. But with the leisure driving the recovery at the moment, Niels, how can hotels be more responsive to the needs of leisure guests?
Yeah, very, very good question. And, you know, I just wanted to come back to what Ellis was saying. I think, you know, I absolutely 100% agree with what you're saying. But, you know, corporate versus leisure is always a very important question. And there was actually a project I did a couple of years ago where I was working with a hotel chain which had a program which was geared towards the corporate traveler. And when we started analyzing, you know, how that program was working, and it wasn't actually working very well. And we started analyzing, okay, what is it that you're giving? And they said, okay, every corporate traveler that books, it was executive floor, gets a free dry cleaning of one suit. They get free drinks from 5 to 7. They get free access to the lounge that they had. They had a private swimming pool by the lounge. And it turned out it wasn't very popular and people didn't want to pay. And they ended up upgrading people for free into corporate rooms. And so that program wasn't working. And when we started analyzing it, was all of the perks that were being offered weren't of interest to those corporate travelers. So then they revamped it and made it much more sort of family and leisure travel friendly, leisure, I should say, for Ellis, so he understands. But the thing was there again, it's looking at what it is that your guest wants. And you know, if you look at the big brands, they all have those points-based loyalty programs, which are geared, as Ella said, to sell flags. But also one of the things that we have to look at is what kind of area are you operating in? We have people on the call from all over the world, because if you're operating in North America, 80% of your hotels are big brands. So you know those big brands, they're with a corporate flag, and you know you can't really fight against those. And what you need to try and do is do something that sets yourself apart from those programs, right? So that instant reward is one of the things that you can do. So you can offer something instantly when you become a member. Okay, the 10% discount. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it does trigger people to book direct. But what's far more important and what's far more valuable, in my view, is actually really looking at, okay, what is the reason that these leisure travelers are coming to visit my hotel? What is it that they want from my hotel? Why do they choose my hotel? If you're a boutique-style hotel that is, you know, very trendy and things like that, maybe offer something that's in line with the hotel, maybe offer some kind of perk. It could be a free cocktail that your hotel specializes in. It could be something more tangible. It could be like, you know, I saw one hotel chain that offered like a rubber duck in different colors, so you could actually build like your entire collection of rubber ducks, you know, very similar to the KLM little miniature houses that they give away for the business class. So it's really, you know, you need to analyze your target audience, and you need to understand, okay, what is it that they want to get out of this personally? What triggers them? And that Justin Bieber example that Ellis gave, prime example. One thing not to forget, we often look at the airlines, but like Casper said, airlines are very, very different, right? First of all, there are far fewer airlines. And for me, actually earning those points does actually help me because, you know, I'm based in London and there are only a couple of airlines that operate out of London. And there are certain routes that I want to take. I want to fly back to the Netherlands to visit my family. I want to fly to Greece to visit my wife's family. So there are certain things. So I choose my airlines based on how I can collect points to get free, you know, free trips there. So that's the reason I travel, or I travel certain airlines and I choose. And so for me, that actually works. I actually, at one stage, I was flying Lufthansa a lot because of the fact that Lufthansa had those world miles or more shops. So you could basically take your miles, you can spend them, you know, you could buy a new suitcase at the airport. You can actually use your miles to spend at the airport. So it's the ease of spending those perks, and I'm deliberately saying perks, not points, because, you know, I think perks is far more broad. So you can, yes, points do work, but having those additional offerings, not just saying, okay, you get points, but every, you know, we were talking to a partner of ours not too long ago, and they said, you know, we want to award guests that stay 3 nights with a box of chocolates. Then after 5 nights, they get something else. And after 10 nights, they get something else. So they actually get tangible things. But this is the thing, you're trying to compete with the big brands. In Europe, it's a little bit less than in North America, or in Asia for that matter as well. But at the same time, you know, you want to stand out and offer something that is special, that sets you apart from your competition.
Thank you, Niels. I couldn't see if Ellis was going to jump in here.
You know, I was gonna mention, you know, one of the most loyal experience that I've ever had in a hotel had nothing to do with technology. And I know as a technology person, I shouldn't say that, but you know, we can't forget that piece of it too, right? Like the on-property experience. And I'll tell you what it is, and I love the brand. It's Pineapple Hospitality out of the Pacific Northwest. And we were traveling with our son at the time, who was like 3 years old. And he had all his stuff, not all, but like 4 or 5 stuffed animals that he had on his bed. And when they came and made the bed that day, this was pre-COVID, so they were still doing room cleaning. They had set up all his animals like in front of the pillow, and then they had put in their little logo husky dog stuffed animal, right? And wrote a little note and said, "Your friends look lonely from your friends at Pineapple Hospitality," right? And I'm telling you right now, not that I would do this, but if I walked into my son's room right now, he's still sleeping. It's only 20 to 7 in the morning and it's summer. That stuffed animal is still sitting there. And anytime we go to the Pacific Northwest, we go to that brand because of that singular experience. Now, how do you take that and translate it into a loyalty program? That is the conundrum that hoteliers face, right? And it's not easy, but it can be easy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ellis. I want to bring Victoria into the conversation here, and it was something that Niels just touched on about, I guess, the independent versus the bigger brands conundrum, if you like. Victoria, what are your thoughts on how independent hotel brands can compete with these larger groups and chains?
Sure. I mean, I think compete is a really interesting word here, because as a smaller brand, you always have the challenge of a lot of the reason and benefit behind these bigger chains and their loyalty schemes is the choice that's automatically offered to the customer. So they have 4 or 5 sub-brands offered in an area. So the choice in that location, you can always find something within that brand that's going to meet your needs. So when we talk about these loyalty schemes in terms of people that want to build up those points balances that they can use anywhere, that's where those people feel like they're getting that value with those points, because they've got all of the options laid out in front of them. But when you're an operator that's a single location or has 3 or 4 locations spread out across an area, your loyalty isn't going to be built around the options you're offering in the diverseness of your properties. It can only come from that personalization and that human element, which is what at Rooms we focus on so much. And we're very proud to say that look at any of our locations and you'll see us in the top 10 on TripAdvisor, because it's so important to us that that human element doesn't completely leave. We're not a brand that has done what a lot of bigger brands have done in the COVID age and taken technology to that new level where you now completely check yourself in and you don't even have to see a single person. We still want that touch point with our customers to make sure that their experience is what we want it to be. But I think with that comes the fact that as independent boutique hotel brands, you have that flexibility. We're not bound by anything in terms of a rule or regulation or what we can do in terms of that personalization, whether it's something like the percentage discount we want to offer, the integrity we have in offering our best rate guarantee, because we have full autonomy over where we're distributed, how we're distributed, that you don't necessarily get the luxury of with being part of the bigger global brands, because you are controlled by what's happening above you. We have that luxury to really deep dive into what our customers want and really control and tailor their journey and their process throughout the whole experience.
I'd like to blend my next question to you, Victoria, with one that's come in from the audience. I have a question here about what's your advice on how hotels can best engage members to participate? And I'm going to tie this in with the question from the audience about how do you convince your guests or customers to use your loyalty perks when they have not had an experience yet at your hotel?
Sure. I think the obvious one for us, and the one we really drive on, is that best rate guarantee. I think something we've done a lot of work on that we're very proud of is our rate parity, and really being able to, because the reality is, as much as we can put the content out there on online travel agents, wholesalers, whoever it may be, you're never fully in control of how your property is being sold, as much as we would love to be. And we can put all the images in the right places and we can tag them correctly. Something always gets messed up, and suddenly what the customer thinks they're getting isn't right. So that control over building that trust with the guest of, you are always going to get the best price for a rooms apart hotel booking directly on brand.com, and really making sure that the focus is on that element of trust. And that's where having our central reservations team is so vital for us, because we keep that human point of having that option of, especially in a digital age, we still have that option of picking up the phone and speaking to someone about a booking. You're not going through call center lines or automated lines first and being asked 20 questions before you get through to a human to ask what you want. We've really continued to put the focus on people and really increasing the element of loyalty that builds trust. And I think that's the biggest thing that independent brands can do, is really focusing on that element of trust and building it.
Thanks, Victoria. And keeping on the topic, if you like, of how to engage new customers, Casper, I'd like to bring you in here, because I'm going to say the word metaverse, and no doubt some people's brains are just going to go, because we're still trying to figure out exactly what that means for our industry. And I know Citizen M are very much exploring this new world. And I'd like to get your thoughts, Casper, on how do you see things like the metaverse and NFTs impacting the guest experience and that knock-on effect on loyalty?
Well, what just happened with your head is happening to mine as well, anytime I think of it. Yeah, I think the major the main struggle that is actual today is actually, what is Metaverse, what are NFTs, how is it all developing? I have to be at the South by Southwest conference in Austin with some of the brightest people on earth, and they were not even agreeing on what it is. Still, I believe there is a momentum that if you want to onboard and if you want to get familiar with actually what is the potential, then this is a good moment. And that's actually what why Cendyn are taking some steps in. Actually, it's one big discovery tour. So the question one is like, what is it? For us, it is really a way to see if we can have like, when you talk about Metaverse, if there's some kind of other world imaginable. This is not only about a hotel of the future that everyone goes to virtually, but it's also like, how can it help us in constructing the hotels and everything by having like a artificial way of doing it. If you then link it to NFT and anything related to blockchain, yeah, then the question is, where do we see value? Well, we have a couple of use cases that we are looking into, and one of them is around loyalty. Getting back to Neil's point earlier, is like, what can gamification and playfulness mean when you talk about loyalty? What we have seen is that the people Cendyn is a brand of choice in that sense, that we are not for everyone. It's focusing at a very specific target audience. And we see that people that like us, they like us a lot. And there's also people that don't like us, and that is then also fine. And the people that do like us are open to this kind of modern, contemporary stuff. And what we see as a potential in a metaverse linked to NFT, but it could also be a coin, is actually that you deploy it as some kind of gamified loyalty instrument. That you say, well, hey, listen, here is a Cendyn M coin. We don't actually know what's going to happen with it, but we give you one, and then we will see what the future brings to it. And since it's also new, it also allows you as a customer to get a taste of what it is. And there are some examples of others that are exploring it like it. If you go into NFT, for us, that is more, so the coin is generic, every coin is the same. NFT is linked to a unique object. And yeah, that's where it sort of fits a bit with the Cendyn brand when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to the art that we have in our hotels, and it's a way to publish it digitally. Yeah, it can be as simple as you take a picture of the art in one of our hotels, and then we make an NFT out of it, and then we give it away. And it would do exactly the same thing. It would sort of give a playful way and potentially get some value. I only believe it can work if there is some kind of emotional connection to it. And in that sense, I think it's very important what Alice and also Niels were saying about, yeah, what matters, and if it doesn't matter, yeah, then don't do it. And that's where we currently are. When we talk about the metaverse, then we are really saying, okay, if we by acquiring a plot in Sandbox, can we actually create the first hotel that is there? Maybe we're not the first, but at least one of the first, and then just see how that grows. For me, that's a bit further down the road, but I think everything is far down the road, but that's even further down the road to really see how that's going to be material. Because yeah, personally, I'm also still like, yeah, if you look at travel, do we really see ourselves like giving up traveling and exchanging it for sitting with a headset on? That personally, yeah, it doesn't feel like entirely right yet. So that's more or less where Cendyn is in exploring this.
Mm-hmm. Before I come to Ellis on that emotional point, I'd like to stay with you, Casper, here, because I think it was actually Victoria who highlighted that technology plays a huge role in trust. It can either make or break trust. And Cendyn is a very tech-savvy, tech-forward brand. So Casper, where do you see the opportunities here for technology to engender that trust?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Cendyn started off by wanting to be a disruptor or anything, a whole mouthful, and digital was helping in showcasing that by checking in via kiosks or iPads in the room to control it, your lights and television. And we still have that. We now also have an app that allows you to manage all like that. But more and more we see that people are so used to tech solutions for practically everything that is no longer a way to sort of amaze your audience. It's no longer that. We see it more like an enabler for practically everything we want to do, and there it becomes more and more important. So the USP of digital we see a bit less, but we see like things we want to do, like talking about the subscription that we discussed, or talking about the metaverse or anything. Yeah, their digital is key, and for us it's like a pepper and salt to just make sure that it gets a bit of flavor to what we do, but it also is an enabler for what we want to do. If we look at the prime priorities that Cendyn has, also getting out of Corona and let's say managing our growth, We believe that digital should help us to accommodate convenience. We are only at the start. If you look at the flash delivery services, all the subscriptions that you have in bikes and everything in the Netherlands, there is like some sort of need for convenience that has no end. And what is very important here, that is not the older people, but it's like the students that are so keen on it. So that's the buyer of the future. Those are the ones that are sort of dictating where we need to go on convenience. And all we can do is, as Citizen M, to just follow that trend and try to be ahead of expectations. Then when it is a bit more the softer touch, like sense of belonging to a brand, and actually the human touch that we find super important in our hotel, that's where we really see, okay, how can digital accommodate that? So for instance, we have an app now recently launched for employees that allow and make it very easy to do a room change, or to do a housekeeping option, or to report on an incident. And this creates much more efficiency. So it's faster, so you can spend more time with your guests. It's mobile, so you can do it where it happens. You don't need to stand behind the desk, and you get a lot of extra information on who you're talking to or what is actually at stake. So these are examples of how we work and use digital actually as an enabler for our goals. And then when it comes to the trust on that, I think trust in digital is not the issue per se. I think what is a challenge is that it needs to be relevant. Mm-hmm. So no bells and whistles that have no value, and it needs to work. And it needs to work. It's like it's if you are walking along a Tesla and actually the door opens. At a certain point you expect it. If it doesn't work, you say, give me the old-fashioned key, but at least I know when I put it in, then it works. And that's where Citizen M believes it should go as well. I cannot say that it always works 100% of the time, and that's actually where also our biggest effort sits, to make sure it always works, because that generates the trust.
Thanks, Casper. And I do believe that tied in with trust, the human touch, the technology point, it's all linked with loyalty, and it's all linked with what Ellis has so far called emotional loyalty. How do you really build that up? And so I'd like to finish off with a question to Ellis about how do you balance your transactional loyalty against that emotional loyalty?
Yeah, and that is a question that I think all hotel groups, and even outside of our vertical, have to ask themselves. How many times can you keep going back to the same well, essentially, right? Transactional loyalty will always have its place, right? It is the foundation of how we are geared and informed to think how loyalty should work. But we are truly at an inflection point, as we see, and you highlighted this on one of your first slides about, not a week can go by without us hearing about some loyalty program from some hotel group that has shifted their schema, changed their tier infrastructure, shifted their reward content, or has done a positive thing like Casper and Citizen M, and just completely shifting the model, right? So we are at this inflection point. Now, was COVID the intersections of all things that made that change, right? Did the frequency of business travel reduction increase our need to go out and try to attract more leisure? We'll leave that for the pundits to go out and debate over the next couple of years. The good news is travel is back, baby, right? So that is what we're hearing across our industry. Emotional loyalty is going to be driven, from my perspective, on the basis of rich data that's gleaned from self-selected reward content, right? If I give you options to choose from, and you choose Lululemon, Athletica, and Yeti, right? I know these things about you. You are now brand aligned to something very specific about these brands. Now, on the transactional side of traditional loyalty, I still have your lifetime value. I still have all your spend metrics. I know how many times you've stayed. I know what your frequency is. So I can deliver, like a traditional CRM need date strategy is, let's look back at everybody that stayed at our hotel over this week, same time last year, same time last 2 years, and let's send them an email and say, hey, do you want to come back to the property? Now, I'm dumbing that down for simplicity's sake, but now what if you could say, you know, Eloise, come back and join us. Here's an offer from Lululemon. We know that you've selected it in the past, right? Now you can start to look at look-alike strategies and say, you know, there's Eloise and there's 15,000 other people in my loyalty program that are grouped together, aligned with these specific types of brands. What can I do and how can I leverage that data to tie into what you didn't even know that you needed to know? I mean, that's the beauty of that self-selected reward content. And that's what we're putting our flag in the ground on how loyalty will change over the years. Now, there needs to be a balance between both, right? Completely understand that. But the ability, and we've mentioned this throughout the show here, there needs to be the idea behind instant gratification, right? From a transactional loyalty perspective, people are used to being gratified immediately across every part of their world right now, right? Our thought is, if someone transacts with your brand, you should reward them immediately. Nobody wants to sit in a silver tier for 9 months waiting to get somewhere, and then they get there and they're like, you know? So, you know, we think there's a massive opportunity. And we just launched at Sahara in Las Vegas yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but that's big for us because they have an existing player points program, but they're leveraging Lassie to give exclusive access to rewards and experiences within the property, right? We are shifting the model of how to attract both players and leisure guests, right? Within a market that is obviously shifting, right? From gaming to entertainment to retail. But this is where we're going. And I think the future is super bright for all of us on this call.
Thank you, Ellis. I did have some questions set aside around the end of third-party cookies and how we can increase personalization and conversion strategies, but we have run out of time. So I'm going to use this moment to say to our audience members that if you would like to ask our speakers and pick up on this content separately, aside from the webinar, please use the chat and find their LinkedIn profiles to connect and carry on the conversation, as I'm sure we could carry on chatting for some time, but unfortunately we are going to have to close off very shortly. So I have some slides to run through very, very briefly. I'm going to give a polite self-plug here to highlight the next webinar that I'm going to be holding on Monday, the 27th of June. It's called M&A Activity in the Lifestyle Sector, and the link to register for this webinar is posted in the chat, or you can either scan the QR code in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. I would also like to flag that we are gearing up for the return of the Urban Living Festival, this 6th to the 7th of July at Canary Wharf in London. And this is an in-person event where you can discover where the hospitality and real estate industry is heading. And you can see the different asset classes on your screens now that are going to be featured at this event. Now, tickets are on sale. You can find further information into the chat. And if you would like to hear specifically further information about sponsorship opportunities or attendee opportunities at Urban Living Festival or any of our webinars, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are up on your screen now. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for tuning in. We are going to leave this webinar open for an extra 2 minutes to allow our audience members to follow up on any of the links that are in the chat, and also the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers today. But thank you, Victoria, Niels, Ellis, and Casper, for your insights. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons, Ellis. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you back here on the 27th of June, but do take care, folks.